Hence, in yesterday's class, we tried to understand the philosophical evolution of the West, of the Western world, Europe. And I told you that ancient Greece was an age of rationalism, and I hope all of you have understood the meaning of rationalism and secularization. Then comes the medieval Europe, medieval times, and medieval times was the age of religion, or the age of darkness, and church became all pervasive. So here you need to understand the meaning of secularization and absence of secularization, and you need to understand how secularization is linked to rationalization. Fine. And then came the modern age, Renaissance, and Renaissance as well as Enlightenment. So Enlightenment from the Dark Ages, you should find the connection. And Renaissance means revival of reason, revival of Greek way of thinking. So this revival again led to reason, again led to secularization. And then postmodern, I have not explained that much. And then I explained the debates in Western philosophy. So I told you the difference in philosophy. Up till now, you must be able to understand the difference between religion, philosophy, and science. So the origin of science is in the philosophy itself. So we don't have much business to discuss the concept of science here. So we will discuss the concept of philosophy. Philosophy means understanding things on the basis of logic. Logic means critical evaluation. Suppose some practice is there, for example, the practice of child marriage. So critical evaluation of this. The practice of dowry, the critical evaluation. And I also linked the Renaissance of India. Fine, so critical evaluation. Critical evaluation will require the debate. Fine. So in Western philosophy, what you see that the scholars are debating, there are materialists versus idealists. There are foundationalists versus relativists. There are individualists versus collectivists. There are idealists versus realists. And these are the major points of debate, and I hope you understand the meaning of all of these things. And then there is also one point, being and becoming. So some believe that there are certain things which do not change and certain things which change. So being word I have not used yesterday. Being means permanence and becoming means changing. So you will understand the entire Western philosophy, we will say, is like a story. Entire Western philosophy is like a debate. Some idealist will come, then some realist will come, and then again some idealist will come, materialist will come, then idealist will come. So these are the scope of the debates. Now I want you to also understand the meaning of certain philosophical terms. Even if you don't understand, it's okay, because for the students of philosophy optional, it is essential to understand these terms. And for the students of political science, if they understand, well and good. If you have not understood now, somewhere later when we will discuss other philosophers, gradually you will start understanding. But there are certain terms which are always part of teaching of philosophy. So I want that you should be clear with this. So this part we have not done yesterday. So you can just write certain terms, certain philosophical terms. First philosophical term you can say is metaphysics. Second philosophical term, ontology. Third philosophical term, epistemology. Fourth philosophical term, not used much in political science, axiology. Four terms also, if you will understand, it will be better for me. Fine. Metaphysics, ontology, epistemology, and axiology. Fine. So first term is metaphysics. You can write in your copies metaphysics. What does metaphysics denotes? More than physics. In your copies you can write metaphysics means more than physics. Okay? Or over and above physics. More than physics means what? It means there can be, because this metaphysics word, metaphysical word, we will use frequently in Indian government and politics. For example, if we say doctrine of basic structure, it is metaphysical in nature. Fine? Because you cannot see the basic structure, but according to judiciary, it exists. So when I say your focus should be on building the language or vocabulary of the subject, these are some important words which students are often quite troubled with these words, and these words are metaphysics. So metaphysics means more than physics. Metaphysical issues. What does this mean? It means there can be some word or reality beyond the physical world. So what is metaphysical? I have explained that our body is physical, but in the soul, beyond physical, there is something also existing. So soul is a metaphysical part. Some may believe in existence of the soul, and some may not believe in existence of the soul. That's a different thing. Okay, so philosophy is a critical examination. Fine. In philosophy, there are many branches. One of the branch of philosophy is metaphysics. metaphysics is a very dominant branch of philosophy. And what do we study in metaphysics? Something more than physics. Means understanding there can be a reality beyond the physical world. So yesterday I told you, if we take the conception of the world can have two dimensions. One is a physical, and second we call it as the spiritual dimension. I gave you the physical world can be understood by empirical observation, whereas a spiritual world can be understood only by the use of reason. Fine. So metaphysics deals with this part, spiritual. Your physics, your natural science deals with this part. Here when I am using the term spiritual, I am not using it in a terms of religion only. I am using it in terms of something beyond physical. Is this point clear? If we apply the concepts of physics, matter and energy, at least you must be knowing about it. Matter and energy. Fine. If I talk in terms of physics, if I talk not like a philosopher and like an Einstein, a scientist, what I will say that the world is made up of matter and energy. E equals to mc square. Fine. So matter gets converted into energy, energy gets converted into matter. E equals to mc square. So you can see the matter. Matter is a physical part. Can you see energy? You can't see energy, but you deny the existence of energy. You don't deny the existence of energy. So energy is what? The spiritual part. Energy is linked to power. Fine. So what is the concept of God? God is energy. God is powerful. God is spirit. Fine. So when you enter into this domain, it becomes physical. Have you understood this? So what is God? God is a word. एक word है God. किस चीज के लिए है? What is the symbol of God? The symbol of God is power. The symbol of God is positive energy. There is also a evil. Evil means negative energy. So it's all about energy. The physical world is there, which we see. Energy we don't see. So energy will come under metaphysical. So for common man, we use the term God. Why you use the term God? Because God is a symbol of what? Energy. God is a symbol of what? Power. And then we can go further into detail. Fine? The positive energy and the negative energy. So when you go to the temples, what is the idea behind? You have been told there is a positive energy there. When you go to some haunted places, what is the idea behind? There is some negative energy. Is this clear? So energy and matter, body and soul. I hope it is clear what is metaphysical. And after when you study later on, you will find that physics, religion, philosophy all merge at some point of time. So religion is what? Religion is a folklore. Religion is telling things in a language which people understand. Philosophy further and science further. Philosophy and science is not meant for common man. The common man may not understand the philosophy or the science behind certain customs and traditions. So they have to be told in terms of religion. Is this aspect clear? So physical, spiritual, this is what in metaphysics we try to understand something more than physical world. It's not necessary that every scholar will accept the metaphysics. Is this point clear? So now, very closely related to the concept of metaphysics is a concept of ontology. the moment you study metaphysics, in metaphysics you study many things, but you study ontology. Fine. Now ontology means onto plus logy. So I am going slow. You can also write side by side, I feel. Ontology made up of two words, onto and logy. The word logy in Greek means science. So don't think science here is used in the term of physics, chemistry, biology and all. Fine. Science is also a concept of knowledge. Knowledge. For knowledge, some people use the word science. Knowledge equals to science. Knowledge equals to philosophy. Knowledge equals to religion. Fine. What is knowledge? Knowledge tells you reality. So one aspect of knowledge is religion. Fine. The religious heads also you say guru, but some people will not say accept this basis of knowledge. Then there is another basis of knowledge, that is philosophy, where the basis of knowledge is logic. Fine. And maybe let us say here some guru comes. For example, Ram Rahim comes. Baba Ram Rahim. Fine. So some people consider him as a guru, source of knowledge. But the rational people will never go into all these things. So another knowledge is philosophy, that is based on logic. So for example, I will give the example of Plato. And then comes science. I will give the example of Newton. So Newton will have no faith in Plato and Baba Ram Rahim. Fine. Plato may not have faith in Newton. Ram Rahim may not have faith in any. So for Ram Rahim, this is knowledge. For Plato, this is knowledge. For Newton, this is knowledge. So when we use the term science, it doesn't mean physical sciences. It doesn't mean natural sciences. It only means knowledge. Fine. So science word, you can use it for knowledge. Philosophy word, you can use it for knowledge. So when the word science is used here, it is not based on the distinction between philosophy and science, that here some experimentation is being done. No, but logy means science and you can call it as knowledge. That's all. Onto. The literal meaning of onto is existence. The literal meaning of onto is what? Existence. Fine. Existence. I hope you have written ontology. Logy means science. Onto means existence. Fine. So here, what exactly the scholars are trying to understand? Existence. What scholars are trying to understand? The scholars are trying to understand what really exists. What really exists. So in your copies you write ontology. You write ontology is made up of two words, onto and logy. Logy means science, but it denotes knowledge. Onto means existence. So we want to understand what exists in reality. Fine? Or what is the real existence? Fine? So here the debate is between matter and idea. Fine? Is the matter is the reality, or idea is the reality? Is this point ontology you have understood? Ontology means existence, understanding of existence. Understanding of existence means what really exists. So, what really exists? Ontology. Onto plus logy. Logy is science or knowledge. The knowledge of existence. The knowledge of existence means what really exists. For example, matter or idea. So materialists or idealists. So some people will believe that this world is a world of matter, and that is real. That is the real existence. Reality is matter. For them, reality is matter. For them, reality is idea. Fine? Existence. Later on, we will study one scholar, Sartre. Sartre's statement is existence is prior to essence. So that is what we will study in ontology. Fine, they are very closely connected, so there can be a confusion. So ontology, if I say, you can write, you have written, ontology means the study of existence. The study of existence means what really exists. Now, what really exists? In philosophy, there is a debate. So, for some, matter, and for some, idea. For some, matter, and for some, spirit. So, what really exists? There can be a difference. Okay? So, for your understanding, you can write, for example, Marx is materialist. Fine. So for him, what really exists is matter. Okay. So I'm not giving the name of this scholar right now, or make you write Sartre. So what Sartre says? Sartre says freedom is made up of routine. So these words means they believe in matter as the basis of existence. Next, under idealist, you can write the ontology of Plato is idealism. So for him, the idea is the real existence. Okay. Now, very closely related word to ontology is epistemology. Fine. What is epistem? Epistem is a Greek word for knowledge. Epistemology means epistem plus logy. Epistem means knowledge. Fine. So epistemology is theory of knowledge. theory of knowledge. Fine. So in Socrates also we will study the theory of knowledge, epistemology. Fine. So the theory of knowledge, closely connected question with ontology is, what is reality? What is the way to understand reality? Fine. So you will find there are some who believe that idea is real. There are some who believe that matter is real. So the use of understanding, the method will be reason, or here the method will be observation. Fine. So keep these words in mind when you will study the actual philosophies. You will start understanding the fine. So there was some, because of power failure, I think there was, you would have not listened to what I'm saying. So I'm again saying, don't get frightened with these words. Stay cool. You will be able to understand these words very easily. I will tell you when are we studying metaphysics, when are we doing epistemology. Fine. So far in today's discussion, just apply your mind. Can you tell somebody the difference between physical and metaphysical? So metaphysical is a belief that there is some reality beyond physics, beyond the physical world. Fine. So if Newton or kinetic theory of philosophy says world is made up of matter, what Einstein said, matter gets converted into energy. Okay. So today you should be in a position to explain to somebody physical and metaphysical. Political philosophy or any philosophy, the best way to understand is you engage in dialogue with the others. So the best thing is you involve your family, you involve your parents and try to explain and see whether you can explain them. You are able to explain what is physical and what is metaphysical, and are they convinced? So now related to it is ontology, the study of existence. So what really exists? Matter or spirit? Matter or idea? Epistemology is closely related to it, which says theory of knowledge. If I believe idea is real, how to understand it? If I believe matter is real, how to understand it? So to gain the knowledge of the physical world, we use senses. To gain the knowledge of idea, we use reason. Okay. Now another word I will tell you is axiology. So we don't need to use it frequently, but axiology is the study of values. So there is a difference between value and fact. Fine. Value means honesty. Value means justice. Value means freedom. Value means righteousness, courage, bravery. This is all axiology. So what is axiology? Study of values. Okay. Then there is also two words we use in philosophy which I have not mentioned, and I thought I can tell you here only. And these two words are teleology. You will use it frequently in your ethics paper teleology and deontological. Teleology, another term for teleology is consequentialism. So in ethics you will use these words, teleology, more than political science, the words which I have told you will use in ethics. So teleology and deontology. There are certain theories which are teleological theories. There are certain theories which are deontological theories. So what are teleological theories? Teleological theories say, assess, these are the theories of ethics. Fine? Ethics means to understand right and wrong. So what is right and what is wrong? Assessment of right and wrong on the basis of the results. This is called teleology. Fine? Deontology. Now, example of teleology we will study in Machiavelli. One famous quotation of Machiavelli is, in politics, ends justify the means. In politics, ends justify the means. For example, which action is a right action? For example, if we say US has used the nuclear weapons on Hiroshima, Nagasaki to finally end the Second World War. The use of nuclear weapons was right or wrong? If I decide it on the basis of consequence, what is the consequence? The consequence means it had ended the Second World War. Fine? So for consequentialist, this is right. Okay? So when you judge an action on the basis of the consequences it produces. So these are very heavy words and you may find it difficult, but when I will enter into the theory, I'll keep on telling. So teleology means consequentialism. Okay. Now next is deontology. Deontology is deontology is you believe in certain values. So you can write it down. Deontology is you believe in certain values irrespective of the ends. Okay. Here we can give the example of Gandhi. If you will write the statement of Gandhi, you can understand it. Gandhi. So Gandhi believed in the purity of means. Gandhi and Machiavelli are two opposite schools. For Gandhi emphasized on purity of means, whatever is the end. Our means, Gandhi believed in non-violence, and Gandhi was a believer in non-violence. So Gandhi believed in certain value. Value is what? Non-violence. Value we study where? In axiology. And Gandhi believed that whatever be the consequence, I will not leave the non-violence. Gandhi even said, non-violence is my belief, non-violence is my faith. So I am sure you are troubled with these words, but I am also sure that later on you will not be troubled, you will understand it when you will study ethics, when you will study the other philosophers, and I will tell the position is teleological or deontological. So another example I am giving is, suppose I say that I am honest. Fine, I am honest because I believe that honesty is good, and under any circumstances I will not leave it. Suppose as an honest officer and the system in which I am working is corrupt, but I believe in certain values of honesty, and because of my honesty I am transferred to some remote position. Because of my honesty my promotion suffers, but I am okay because I believe in the value of honesty. I believe in satisfaction of my soul, then my position will be deontological. Similarly, if I believe that I am honest, I will not take bribe, but not because I believe in honesty, but I believe that taking bribe, the consequence can be bad. I may end up in jail, I may be caught, I may suffer the pain. Then my position will be consequentialist or teleological. Okay? So, for teleological, in your ethics paper and in political philosophy, you will study about utilitarianism. So, utilitarianism is a consequentialist doctrine. So, utilitarianism says that I must do something if that ends in pleasure. Fine? So, pleasure and pain. I must not do anything if it gives pain. So, whether I should take bribe or I should not take bribe. Utilitarianism says if it results into pain, don't take it. If it results into pleasure, take it. So, here I am focusing on the ends. So, such theories are called teleological theories. Deontological means where I will be honest irrespective of whether it results into pain or it results into pleasure. When we will study the theory of justice given by Rawls, there will be a question. Do you think Rawls' theory is deontological? So we will discuss that then. We will also study Amartya Sen's theory of justice. In Amartya Sen's theory of justice, he gives the two examples, one of Krishna and other of Arjun. Fine? In the war, Arjun was teleological, means Arjun was not ready to go for war, understanding the consequences that it will result into the death of so many. Fine. What is the use of such a victory at the cost of the pain of losing the near and dears? Whereas Krishna's position was deontological, means The Kshatriya has to perform his dharma, whatever is the duty. So in Indian philosophy, Krishna can be an example of deontology. The statement to understand deontology is, do your duty, reward is not your concern, where you are not focusing on the end product. So I hope you are at least, if you haven't understood, I am okay, but I want that you should be just familiar of these terms. Epistemology, metaphysical, ontology, you may get confused how to differentiate it, leave it. Fine? Gradually, you will understand that. So, this is the terms I wanted to discuss with you. And then yesterday, I started with pre-Socratic thinking. In the pre-Socratic thinking, first emerged physicists like Thales, Anaximander, you don't have to remember their names, and they were engaged in studying the physical part of, physical characteristics of universe. For example, Thales said everything in this universe is made up of water. Some other person said air, some said fire. So they were trying to understand the universal element. What is universal in everything of this universe? So universal means they were foundationalists. So when Thales said everything is made up of water, but in everything of this world you don't see water, it means there is also some concept of change. So some scholars started understanding water and let us say some object, let us say steel. I don't know from chemistry point of view if there's some water in the steel or not. So how this water as a primary element got converted into steel? How? So came the philosopher Heraclitus. So what Heraclitus said? Heraclitus said that one of the property of this universe is change. Everything is changing in this world. So what Heraclitus said, one of the property of universe is change. So from all these ideas, physics has also developed. So one of the property of the universe is change. So everything in the universe is changing. In modern science, in modern physics, you will find that it is believed that universe is expanding. Fine. So when universe is expanding, it means nothing is static. Okay. So he said one of the characteristic of this world is this is a world of change. And in yesterday I told you his famous statement, you can never step twice in the same water. And there is an influence of all this thinking on the later day scholars. And then there was a scholar I told you, Parmenides, who says that change happen, but along with change, there is something permanent. Suppose you see a child at the age of 10 and after 15 years you again meet him. It's not that there will be big difference in that child, but still you can recognize. So the idea of change itself involves the idea of permanence. So there is something permanent also. Now after Parmenides, I told you Pythagoras. Pythagoras is supposed to have come to India. So with Pythagoras, we also see the beginning of the metaphysical thinking there. Pythagoras introduced the theory of soul. Then Pythagoras held that universe is based on certain principles. These principles can be understood on the basis of maths. As a discipline, maths is very close to philosophy. You must not be knowing, but Plato has formed a school known as Academy. And on the gate of Academy, it was written that nobody should try to enter the gate if that person doesn't know mathematics and geometry. Because if you cannot do mathematics and geometry, you cannot understand philosophy. Why? Because whether it is mathematics or it is philosophy, you require some abstract logic, abstract thinking, ability to think in abstract. Find a plus b square and so on. So abstract thinking and logic is essential. So there is a person called Pythagoras who has influenced. With him begins the metaphysical tradition, and Pythagoras said that there is a harmony in the universe. In universe, there is some equilibrium principle. So when I said Western philosophy, another division is that there are some people who believe that there is harmony as a principle, and some believe that no, universe, there is no harmony in the universe. Universe is in the state of chaos. Harmony versus chaos. You cannot make sense of anything what is happening. You cannot say that after this season will come. You cannot say that in the monsoon rain will come, because for many there is no order in the universe, and the universe is in the state of chaos. But Pythagoras is a scholar of order, and all these scholars have influenced Plato and Socrates. Okay, so now pre-Socratic thinking, you can write in your copies what are the characteristic features of pre-Socratic thinking. What are the characteristic features of pre-Socratic thinking? Fine. So write primarily physicists who studied the physical property. Though with Pythagoras, we see the beginning of metaphysical tradition. Next, most of them believe that there are some foundational principles. Fine. Then some scholars believe that this is the world of change. Some believe that along with change, there is something permanent. So some believe nothing permanent, and some believe there is permanent. And you must understand that Western philosophy is a story. Western philosophy emerged in the debate. So after these physicists and the type of inquiry they were doing and the type of answers they were finding, they could not satisfy the intellectual curiosity. So out of the dissatisfaction from this thinking emerged another school, the school of Sufism. Fine. So now we will study about Sufism. Because there are two rival traditions, Sufism and Socratic tradition. So we will first start with the tradition of Sufism. So now let us start with the Socratic thinking. And based on the discussion, I will again try to clarify that the pre-Socratic thinking, okay? And in the pre-Socratic thinking, in today's lecture, I have again tried to differentiate. I hope you have understood. So now, again, a pre-Socratic thinking we will do, but right now we will do sophists. And we will try to understand the distinction between sophists and Socratic. Fine. So in the Greek philosophy, you will find two schools of thought, the sophist thought and the Socratic thought. Later on, you will find the tradition of Sophism moving into Epicureanism, utilitarianism, individualism, and Socratic tradition moving into idealism, collectivism, and fascism and all. Fine. So our objective right now is to understand sophist worldview. And without understanding Sophism, we will not be able to understand Socrates, because Socrates is a criticism of Sophism. If Sophism had not been there, maybe Socrates' views would not have been there. Fine. So the debate means understanding two opposite point of views, individualists versus collectivists, materialists versus realists, idealists versus realists. Okay. So now let us understand Sophism. And when we will understand Sophism, you will be able to understand the theory of knowledge. Okay. So forget Socrates right now, understand sophists. Fine. So if you see the dictionary meaning of sophism, it means knowledge, Sophia word, knowledge or wisdom. So the literal meaning is sophism is knowledge. Yeah, if you see the word Sophia means knowledge or wisdom. So in Socrates we will study theory of knowledge. So Socrates defines this knowledge as philosophy. Those sophists are also philosophers, but I am not treating them the father of philosophy, because when we will study Socrates, the term philosophy will acquire a very specific meaning, and in that specific sense, Socrates is known as the father of philosophy. Okay? Now, sophists versus Socratic tradition. How do we define Socrates, father of philosophy? How you define Socrates? How do you define philosophy? Wisdom. So you can also define Socrates as the wisest man. Fine. You can say Socrates is a wisdom personified. Sophists are also representing wisdom. So which wisdom is wisdom? Are sophists wise, or are Socratic, or whether Socrates is wise? Now it is up to you to decide. You find Socrates wise or you find sophists wise. So this is a battle between the two ideas of wisdom. This is the battle between two set of teachers. One having his own wisdom, another his own understanding of wisdom. And now you will see that, or now I will tell what sophists say, I will tell what Socrates say, and the ball is in your court to decide who is more wise. The ball is in your court to decide who is a better teacher. The ball is in your court to decide which knowledge is real. The knowledge given by the sophists, or the knowledge given by Socrates, and later on the followers of Socrates like Plato and Aristotle. Okay? Now, again let us go back into the evolution of Greek philosophy. The evolution of Greek philosophy. And philosophy has its origin in intellectual curiosity. This is the most important thing to become wise. You should have intellectual curiosity. So, intellectual curiosity led to the first set of scholars from Thales to Pythagoras. And these are the scholars who are studying the physical part of universe. So we can call them physicists, though with Pythagoras there is a beginning of the tradition of metaphysics in the concept of soul. But now, after these set of scholars who were trying to tell about the mystery of universe, came the other set of scholars who were trying to tell something beyond. Fine. So there were scholars who held that it is not so important to understand or contemplate about nature. Whether you are contemplating it in the physical or metaphysical sense. This is a question, but not the most important question. Even if we know everything in universe is made up of matter or water, how does that help? So they felt that perhaps they are the people who are not inquiring the more important question. And in comparison to the question about the physical features of this world, the more important questions are that deal with the social world. Fine. So there has been a shift of focus, and this shift of focus is from the world of nature to the world of humans. Fine. So from studying about the rain, the water, the lightning, the thunder, it is more important to deal with the social issues. Fine. Human society. Rather than studying about the planets, why not study about the humans? This is the more relevant question. Fine. So this change led to the development of a branch of philosophy known as ethics. The shift from understanding the universe, the shift from understanding the universe, there is a need to understand the social sphere rather than nature. So emerged a branch of philosophy known as ethics. Okay, so you can write that, right? Subheading, origin of ethics. In the origin of ethics, you write, when certain scholars were engaged in the study of nature or the physical aspects of universe, others raised the question, it is more important to study about the human and the human world rather than the world of nature, water, light, air, oxygen, nitrogen. Fine. So right. So these scholars held that it is more important to know right. So I'm first explaining it. What is life? And second question is how we ought to live, or how we should live. So maybe in biology, which is also a sort of a natural science, you study what is life, and you can say that life is made up of protoplasm. The more important question they held is not knowing life is made up of what, rather knowing what should be the way of life. How should we lead our life? What ought to be the life? Is that clear? So we shifted away from the physical world to the world of humans. And here we started dealing with which type of questions ought and should. What should be the way of life? How a person ought to live. So we are entering into the domains of norms, values. You can call it as normative philosophy or ethics. Fine. So I hope you have written this question. So you have written this question. The question is origin of ethics. Fine. So I am going slow. You can write origin of ethics. Where is the origin? How ethics originated? Where is the origin of ethics? The origin of ethics is in the intellectual curiosity. So this is the curiosity is the most important progressive element in us, and the origin of ethics is also in the intellectual curiosity. Fine. And when we achieve one, we move towards the other. So intellectual curiosity led some people to inquire about the physical properties. Let some people to inquire about the physical property or the biological property. For example, what is life? But some people felt that the more important question is physical, but some people felt that we need to think more deeply, not on what is life, what are elements of life, what constitute it, but this question, what constitutes good life? Means the important question is not what is life or what is universe, but what constitutes a good life. Fine. What constitutes a good life means how should we live, how ought to live, how we should ought to live. And this is a beginning of ethics. Fine. So where is the beginning of ethics? Intellectual curiosity. In which question, the question is how we should live rather than knowing what is life. Is this clear? So understand what is ethics. What is ethics? So in your copies you can write ethics is a branch of philosophy. Ethics is a branch of philosophy. What is philosophy? Knowledge. Ethics is a branch of philosophy. It is a branch of knowledge. What are we studying in that branch? It is a branch of philosophy or knowledge. What does, next question is, what do we study in ethics? Fine. Or what is the central question in ethics? What do we study in ethics, or what is the central question in ethics? Okay. So the answer is the central question in ethics is not what constitutes life. Means the central question is not sodium, potassium, water and all, what constitutes life. Rather, what constitutes good life. What constitutes good life, or basically how we ought to live. Be very attentive. So you have a question on ethics. Fine, you have a paper on ethics also. And in ethics, what are you going to study? Who is a good officer? Fine. And how officer ought to behave. Who is an ideal civil servant? In ethics, you will get the case studies. And case studies will try to know, do you have an element of goodness into you or not? So, the ethics is what is a good life, how we ought to live, or the central question of ethics is art of living. Art of living. Fine. So, how we ought to live, and what constitutes a good life. If I ask you this question, what is art of living? Art of living means what is the good life. Fine. So basically, you need to know the definition of good. Definition of good. What is good? Okay. Which answer is a good answer? Which answer is an excellent answer? Which answer is a poor answer? So the evaluation of an answer as good, bad, poor, excellent depends upon the examiner's conception of good or bad. So students ask these questions, should we write point wise? Should we do this wise, that wise? Manu, you light this answer, that answer. Fine, we ask this question. So basically, is there any universal standard of good? Or the good of everybody is different? I may find this answer good, or I may find that answer good. Fine. So is there any universal idea of good, or the particularistic ideas of good? Is this clear? So basically, the ethics is about what is a good life, how we ought to live. The life should not be just the mere animal existence. There should be a good life. You should live with dignity. So these type of questions. What is a good life? Fine. And how we ought to live. I want all of you be very clear about what I am speaking. Even if not for political science, you may not be requiring to understand ethics, but for your ethics paper, at least you need to know ethics. And in ethics, you will be studying Socrates as a father of ethics, the general definition of ethics. Okay, so understand in the discipline what is ethics. Ethics is a branch of philosophy. Fine. What do we study in ethics? How we ought to live. Okay, which life is a good life. Fine. So first of all, write the questions in ethics is which life is a good life and how we ought to live. Okay. Ought. So whenever these type of words come, ought, should, we call it as a normative. We call it as a normative discipline. So which type of discipline the ethics is? Ethics is a normative discipline. The nature of this discipline differs from the traditions which we call as natural science, even biology. This is all natural science. It deals with the question is. But ethics deal with the question of should, ought. Fine. So whenever a question of ought comes, we call it as a normative theory. Where a question of ought does not come, we call it as an empirical theory. Fine. So I believe you are finding it difficult. So I am again explaining intellectual curiosity led to the development of a set of philosophers and these philosophers inquired the physical property of universe, physical property of universe means material aspects. Fine. So for example, if we take biologist will see that the life is biologist. We call them physicians and all. They say that life is made up of protoplasm. So people found that, okay, that's fine, but now let us deal with more important question. The more important question is, what is the more important question? What is a good life? Or how we ought to live. Fine. So the branch of philosophy which answers these questions is called ethics. I hope it is now clear. So if you ask question, what is the nature of the discipline of ethics? What is the nature of the discipline of ethics? If your question is, what is the nature of the discipline of ethics? I am writing in another page. We are studying about ethics now. Fine. So, what is ethics? Ethics is a branch of philosophy or knowledge. Fine. What do we study in ethics? Art of living. So basically, not what is life, but what is good life. So art of living means what is a good life and how we ought to live. These two questions are linked because how we ought to live, how we should live, depends upon how we define good. What is good? Tell me, which life is a good life according to you? Is the life of an honest officer who has a moderate wealth good, or a life of a corrupt officer with lot of wealth is good? So this will depend upon your conception of good. So in ethics, we study about the conception of good or bad. Fine. Being individualistic is good, or being caring for society is good. Being materialistic is good, or being spiritualistic is good. Running after money is good, or running after or living with honesty is good. This is the question of good. What is a good governance? What is a good state? Who is a good person? Who is a good capitalist? Who is a good officer? Who is a good politician? So the question of good is what you study. The conceptions of good may vary. So what is good for one may not be good for other. Fine. So it vary. So that is why philosophy is called as a normative discipline. Okay. Because you focus on, or ethics is called a normative discipline because you are trying to understand the idea of good. Is this clear? So you can just write next question. What is the nature of the discipline of ethics? What is the nature of the discipline of ethics? What is the nature of discipline of ethics? This question can also be asked in another way. What can be the other way? The other way is, what type of theories are the ethical theories? I can ask this question in another way. So I have seen students quite troubled with these words and they are not clear with all these things. So that is why I am giving enough time that later on your confusions are clear and you are not that much confused. Fine. So what type of theories are ethical theories? We use this word normative. The theories in ethics are normative theories. Fine. So what type of theories do you find in ethics? Normative theories. Okay. Now you write, what are normative theories? So I'm again writing, what type of theories are found in ethics? Fine. So I told you the answer, normative theory, and I don't know why students find it so difficult to understand this word normative theory. Fine. So normative theories are called normative theory because they are based on certain norms. Write this question. What type of theories are in ethics? And the answer is normative theory. Then you write, what is a normative theory? Or what is normative? Means which is based on norms. ठीक है? Norms means values. Values. Fine. For example, this is a norm in my family. This means this is a value in my family and I adhere to it. This is a norm that everybody will take the dinner together. Means we give importance to it. We give value to it. So norm is a value. Fine. So values means what should be. What ought to be. What should be, what ought to be, what we consider as right. So again, ethical theories are normative theories. Normative theories means based on norms. Norms are based on certain things we consider right, desirable, valuable. How do we decide this norm? This norm is based on some understanding of good or bad. Fine. So the normative theories are based on certain judgments. Judgments of right and wrong. See, you will not be asked to write what are the normative theories and all, but you have to understand the language when I used the word normative. Normative means value based. Value based means something considered precious and valuable. So something is valuable. This stone is valuable. It is based on certain judgment. So the theories of ethics are judgmental. They are value based and they are normative. Is this point clear? Because students are always somehow scared with these words, and if you think systematically, you can very easily and logically derive these words, and you can say that values means norms, something precious, and something is precious or not is based on some standard, and on the basis of that standard you make the judgment. So normative theories are judgmental. Ethical theories have a judgment, the judgment of good and bad, right and wrong. These judgments are based on some standards. These standards are the values. Fine. So you do a judgment that this is a good answer and this is a bad answer. Fine. This judgment is based on certain norms. So examiner can form certain norms that an answer should have facts and analysis and the views of scholars and whatever can be the norms. Fine. So judgment is based on norms. So such theories are called as normative theory, and they may be subjective also. Fine. You have understood the normative theories? So theories in ethics are normative. Write it down. Thus, the theories in ethics are the normative theories. They are normative theories because they are based on certain judgments. Judgments are based on certain standards or values. Okay? So it's important to understand these words. Fine. So again I am emphasizing the theories of ethics are normative theories. They are normative because they are based on norm. Norm is based on judgment or a standard or value. Fine. So you also write that the theories of ethics are value based. They are based on some value, some judgment of good, bad or evil. Now to have more clearer idea of normative theory, we can see which is the other type of theory. Fine. So the other type, to understand normative theory, I always believe if you contrast, then you can understand better. So in order to understand what is day, it is desirable to understand what is night. In order to understand what is success, you must understand what is failure. So in order to understand what is normative, you will have to understand what is empirical. Fine. So normative theory versus empirical theory. Empirical is based on observation. Empirical means observable. Observation. What you can observe. What you can observe? You can observe facts. You cannot observe values. Fine. So facts are facts. Fine. Red is red. White is white. So fact is fact. Fact is not based on any judgment. So they are, empirical theories are value free. They are not based on judgments. In the physical world, in the physics, in the biology, you will have empirical theories. In ethics, you will have normative theories. Normative theories are based on norms. Empirical theories are based on facts. So normative theories are value-based. Empirical theories are value-free. Norms can be understood, but they cannot be seen. Facts can be seen as well as understood. So I hope you have understood the two types of theories, the empirical theory and the normative theory. Empirical theory will observe the things as they are. Normative theory will contemplate how things should be. Fine. So in social sciences, we are more engaged in normative theorization. In natural sciences we are more interested in the empirical theories. It doesn't mean that there are no efforts made in social sciences to develop empirical theory, but with very limited success. So the nature of political science as a discipline is primarily normative. The nature of physics, biology, chemistry is primarily empirical. Is this clear? So now I will try to show, or you can just write, two types of theories. Normative and empirical. Empirical belong to the physical world based on facts. Facts can be observed and they are value free, means they are non-judgmental. Normative theory found in ethics based on norms or values which can be understood only by reason. They are value based and judgmental. Fine. So these theories are also prescriptive. You prescribe something, or they are suggestive. Because you believe something is right, you suggest. But these theories are not suggestive. They are non-prescriptive or non-suggestive. Neither prescriptive nor suggestive. So they prescribe how we ought to live, what should be done. Prescriptive. So prescriptive means they are also change oriented. They aim to bring change in the society, and they are status quoist. They explain the things as it is. Please note down the meaning, and maybe later on you can understand it much better And when we will come to our first topic, nature and scope of political science, we will again understand prescriptive, because they say this is right, this is how you should do. Means I am not doing like this, so I should do. If I should do, I will change. Status quo is, they say this is that, this is what is. So there's no scope for what should be. Fine. So I am leaving you at this point of time, and maybe I am increasing your problems rather than solving your problems, and every day I am bringing some matter to increase your confusions and difficulties. But maybe in the long term, later on, I am pretty sure these things will become very natural to you and you will not find it difficult. So that's all for today. And I don't know whether I'll get time to make the videos on the newspaper analysis, but you are expected to visit my teacher's page to see the notes on the current affairs on the website. Till then, thank you. Don't stress your mind. Talk to your family. Discuss these ideas which you have understood in the class today. That is the best way of learning. So, what Gandhi said about knowledge? Gandhi said education should be from the book of life. So, rather than engaging yourself with the books, you engage with the people and see whether you have two skills, ability to, the most important thing for an administrator is communication. So whether you are able to understand what I said and whether you can explain to others so that they really understand you. Do the practical, talk with your parents, friends, sisters, brothers, explain these things to them. I hope they will find it interesting. Thank you.